Welcome to episode 584 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and if you thought last week for Barcelona with PSG and Real Madrid and feeling the season was over meant that the fireworks and the shocks and the unnecessary good and bad that come with being a culé was going to be missing you for the rest of the season, look no farther than a Monday game against Valencia to get all your good and bad footballing vibes. As always, I want to thank the Patreons up top for helping me continue to make these shows. And as always, the easiest way to help the show, other than the merch store, of course, or Patreon as low as $3 to get these shows without the ads, is just, of course, to subscribe to the YouTube channel or follow along on the podcast apps. So without further ado, let's get into it. The 5 headlines from Barcelona's 4-2 win over Valencia. Headline 1 is conditions for nonsense. As I kind of said in the preamble there, I wondered how much people would even care about a match review. I wonder how the numbers for this are going to do. And you know I always am willing to lift up the hood on that stuff because it is always a worry. When the season, especially in Europe for Barcelona, is officially over, people seem to exit. And that's frustrating for me, and it concerns me, of course, for all the things behind the scenes. And this kind of game, I wonder how much people really care, even those in Barcelona. With the game being moved to Monday, with the weather being terrible, Barcelona versus Valencia, it's supposed to be a pretty big matchup, all things considered. And yes, 30,000 people still hiked up to Montjuic, but it was still the lowest attendance of the season. And the escalators went down on the way up to the stadium, so that definitely made matters worse in terms of the morale of those in the stadium. The objective for this game, though, was still pretty clear, and I know it's not one that fans really truly care about, but it does matter for next season, and you wind up complaining about it in 8 months' time as opposed to complaining about it now. But finishing second in the Liga is important so that Barcelona can be in the Spanish Super Cup. And then over the summer, if there's $3.5 million on FFP that they need, or whatever it is, the million that they're short, and they made the Spanish Super Cup, that might be the difference between affording a player and not being able to afford a player, like even an order of made from this last summer. Valencia, meanwhile, they're in striking distance of Europe, just behind Real Sociedad and Real Betis, so they still have quite a bit to play for. This is also the 1-year anniversary of the debut in the Liga in the Barca first team for Lamine Yamal, and a year on, he has become their most influential winger. And even though Barcelona had not played for 8 days, maybe he's fully fit, I would still have rested the youngster, but he does not get the day off. After all those rumors about Vitor Roque and loan and not being trusted by Xavi, he doesn't get a look at all in this game, not even as a sub, because Barcelona needed to win this game, which is frustrating that they weren't able to take care of business from the jump. With Frenkie de Jong out for the rest of the season, Fermín Lopez also got the start over Pedri, and Barcelona stuck with their 4-3-3 or the 3 center backs in build-up, of course. Valencia, on the other side, a young squad, 2 19-year-olds playing center back, and I did hope from the opening whistle that Lewandowski could use his experience and guile against them. There were 5 Valencia starters, 21 years or younger, so you hope that Barca could take advantage, but as we know, it did take Lewandowski and company till the second half with an extra man to figure it all out. But oftentimes youth doesn't necessarily mean risk. It actually means the opposite, because this Valencia team especially were well organized and they were playing much more conservative, trying to play vertically, tight, and compact. Don't press too much. So don't use your young legs to press high. Instead, use your young legs to cut down space, eliminate passing angles, and work hard defensively as a unit as long as you're well drilled enough, and they were. Christensen was being given space to push forward with Valencia not pressing and being so vertically compact. And he did well on the ball, I thought, Christensen. He's right-footed, so he was shading to Lamine Yamal's side and Fermín's side, and Fermín was finding some of that open space in the middle. It was mostly one-way traffic for Barcelona from the start of this game. Javi Guerrera coming through the middle, the only real threat from Valencia until Hugo Duro had a few moments there in the first 15-20 minutes or so. There was a lot of speed for Valencia out wide. They were, of course, just trying to lull Cancelo into high positions and then have Terry Correa and Peter Gonzalez attack him, which did obviously work in this contest. But maybe it was just the conditions. The tight passing for Barca was good, but because Valencia were compact, they were just willing to allow Lamine Yamal to be the threat with crosses, try to limit those chances, but live with things not being perfect and wait for your opportunities. Headline 2, Fermín free. Fermín on paper was the wild card with that free roll, shading over to the right to support Lamine Yamal, with Gundogan staying in a double pivot with Christensen, and actually starting in deeper positions, that being Gundogan then Christensen, with the ball, because of how narrow and how, as I keep saying, vertically compact Valencia were, which I think was the right move here. 20th minute, Mamardashvili, after a corner kick, went long to Peter Gonzalez, but the ball bounced a bit too wild on him, and Barca were probably a bit fortunate at this point that a slick surface put some speed on that ball and kept him off balance, because this could have been the opener. Barca on the other side, because they had so much overwhelming possession, even at that point in the game, things were getting a bit stagnant. You could already hear the chirping a little bit, especially online, for Barcelona to move the ball faster, horizontally, and I totally agree. Because the minute they finally did that, 22nd minute, Fermín Lopez, his 8th goal of the season, most of those coming as a substitute, which continues to make him Barcelona's highest scoring midfielder this season. I think the thing that we can definitely say after this match, not necessarily even the goal, but his performances, he certainly has a spot in the squad next season. He's not one of those questionable ones to maybe go out on loan. No, because of his wages, because of his role in the squad, and accepting role as a sub, definitely going to be in the squad next season, and I would say almost in the exact same role. You see him in the box, surrounded by 4 or 5 white shirts, waiting for Cancelo to drop it off to Rafinha. A good in-swing ball right onto the head of Fermín. But the overwhelming credit here goes to Fermín. He still had so much to do. The onus was on him to score this goal, to redirect it with strength because it was an in-swinging ball. And he also timed his run perfectly, getting free, particularly from Diego Lopez, who is a winger, and he is his former teammate in the Masia, by the way, as well. But Diego Lopez was muscled by Fermín off the ball, and I think Diego Lopez kind of expected that one of the other 4 white shirts that were closer to goal were going to be able to intercept this ball, but no, it was just Fermín who found the back of the net. And that's a huge positive for Fermín Lopez, so if you're just here for the positives, I would jump ahead a few headlines, because we're going to get a little negative now. Schrecklich der Stegen. My German is not perfect, but I did remember the word for horrible or terrible. That's what that means, because Ter Stegen gave us a great opportunity to learn a new German word if you don't speak German. So if you do just go with the lip reading from this, you could have seen the English expletives that Ter Stegen was uttering after one of his worst mistakes in a very long time. Was this maybe his most boneheaded play ever? I think about that one in the Liga a few seasons ago. It was either a team in yellow or a team in orangish. Maybe it was Valencia again a few seasons ago, but where he was dribbling out, had it just taken away and plopped it in the net. But this was a howler for sure. You can remind me of some of his other gaffes down in the comments below. Because this is the 1-1. Hugo Duro wins the duel with Araujo. So the first part of this, though, is certainly on Araujo. Duro wins the duel. He's in front of Araujo, but then Araujo allows him to get in behind him and run off him. And because Koundé had not stepped to the onside, then Barcelona were in a bit of trouble. Well, they weren't that much trouble, though, because, again, Ter Stegen takes the majority of this blame because he could have and should have handled the ball, but Ter Stegen tried to dribble Duro, and it didn't work. The striker just grabs it off him and an easy finish. Which is the headline for Qué Horrible Araújo. I'm hitting him with the Spanish the way I hit Ter Stegen with the German, because this was just as bad from Araujo. Well, maybe not as bad as what we saw from Ter Stegen, but not great from the Uruguayan. Valencia on the counter again, and not much to break down here. Araujo had Peter Gonzalez with a slight angle, but he slid in, pretty rash, easy call. He went through the winger, nothing to discuss, and it sends Valencia to the penalty spot. Pepello had the idea to go right down the middle from the jump, so Ter Stegen, as goalkeepers generally do, decided to go to one way, and Pepello gets it right down the middle for the 2-1. The talking point here, I think, though, is Araujo. This was an uncharacteristically awful week for Ronald Araujo. Arguably the worst of his career in terms of just a total week of matches. From PSG to Real Madrid to today, he was obviously better and more consistent and also healthier last season, but this week in particular has been a mess in comparison even to the rest of this season. I thought he was rounding into form before PSG, along with Koundé. Now, Koundé, we can admit, really rounded into form, but I thought Araujo was better because he also came back from his injury not in the best form. And people are asking, I think fairly, to have this kind of week for Araujo is so uncharacteristic that you ask, is there something else happening? Is maybe he just making mistakes? Is it as simple as that? Does he not trust himself physically at the moment? Does he have something that he's gutting through that obviously athletes don't want to say, oh, I have this injury or this problem and there's all these worries? So is he not physically trusting himself at the moment? He does make some defensive errors. Per decision-making and the angles, those happen. But because he's so good physically that he makes up for that. He reacts to them very quickly and gets it right. But if he's dealing with an injury and he doesn't have the same pace that he normally does, or he reacts poorly to something, the way that Duro kind of just ran around him, then the alarm bells really go off. And I think that's what's happening with Araujo at the moment, including maybe those transfer rumors as well. Are they getting to him a little bit? You might say that is just mistakes because those fouls and issues are bang-bang plays, but bang-bang moments define the careers of center backs and center forwards. And it was interesting to see, while he did finish the game at center back, right after that goal, he was moved out to right back, and I was wondering if that was on purpose or was that just in the nature of that possession. And I think that Xavi, right after the goal at least, wanted more control through the middle. So Araujo making the switch with Koundé right away, but it wasn't too long before they had switched back, especially with the second half and Inigo Martinez coming on for Kubarsi, who had the yellow card. I also find it really interesting, in a bad way, that Barca stunk up the joint a few days after Xavi said he'd be sticking around for the season, but that's why we're doing the podcast tomorrow, to talk about a bigger idea like that. And headline 5, second half hat trick. 45th minute, it's a handball from Amartishvili, clear as day, as he made an awful touch. Lamine Yamal was on top of it. It's not a penalty, but it is a red card, and VAR can overturn it for a direct red. And because it's outside the ball, it's a goal-scoring opportunity. That's the letter of the law. Easy call here. Rafinha with a decent free kick, saved by the backup keeper, Domenech, which kind of got him involved in the game. And at this point, I actually don't know how optimistic I was because Barca already had like 80% possession before going up a man. And if you thought Valencia was tight before, of course they were going to be battening down the hatches even more. So at halftime, as I mentioned about Negro Martinez, coming on for Kubarsi with the yellow, Christensen, who cannot seem to stay 90 minutes fit, which does continue to bring up the worries about a pivot. A pivot can be a more, at least tiring, maybe not physically demanding, but a more tiring position than center back. So if Christensen can't go 90 as your pivot, that is a position in football that you generally don't change out unless a game really gets turned on its head. So for Christensen to not be 90 minutes fit, it is a worry to have him be the central figure as a pivot next season. And yeah, maybe that's why Guido Rodriguez is being so heavily linked to Barcelona. So that's Roberto who comes on for Christensen in that juncture, but of course he's not the starting pivot for Barcelona next season either. Negro Martinez had to get it right from the jump, making a crucial tackle, which allowed Barcelona to only still be down 2-1. Then the 2-2 comes shortly thereafter. Lewandowski at the near post from the corner. It's a good delivery from Gundogan, and the check from VAR comes from Fermín Lopez being in an offside position. But because Fermín didn't make a play on the ball, they say the goal stands. That was 50-50. And if it goes the other way and that's taken off, I think people have an argument. If Valencia had gotten a goal from this, I think Kool-Aid would have been frustrated with it. So this to me is just more inconsistency from the referees. I expected from the other examples I've seen around the Liga this season that was actually going to be taken off the board. But hey, Barcelona won a 50-50 call. It doesn't make up for PSG and Real Madrid, where they won pretty much none of the 50-50s, but they win this one, and I think that did galvanize them and help them in this game, of course. 2-2. Pretty stagnant from Barcelona, though, from that point on, so they might have been able to bottle the other 2 points here without getting that third goal. 66th minute, maybe João Felix would do more than Rafinha, but it's a like-for-like positional replacement with less defensive effort, and I felt like João Felix, maybe he didn't have enough space. I can't really make an excuse for João Felix. 73rd minute, Fermín off for Pedri, and he had to go right to work because he comes in on the corner, and on that corner, Araujo got a head on it, and Domenech came up big with the save, and then immediately the other way, Pedri saving a goal. Surely Alberto Marti was played through after Barca failed to win any duels, but Pedri came sliding in and did really well to both not foul and save Barca's bacon. And I hope that he at least stayed healthy after that run, because this is, for the last 2 seasons now, Pedri makes a run like that, sells out for the crest, and then all of a sudden, he's out for 2 to 4 to 6 months. So hopefully Pedri, nothing pops up in the next 2 or 3 days, because he saved the goal and saved the points for Barcelona. For the rest of the game, Barca were just kind of probing and trying to get themselves into second place in the table. You could see that was the urgency, that was the goal, and that was also the 11 and the subs that Xavi put on. It wasn't a time for experimenting or Vitor Roque or anything like that. 76th minute, Gundogan had his shot blocked after Cancelo cut it back to the penalty spot, but Barcelona still percolating. Araujo also stayed pretty high up with the extra man, of course, especially on set pieces and waiting for that ball to come back in again, playing with a little bit of fire, but they had so much possession, and once Marti came on for Duro, they lost a bit of their threat. 80th minute, Koundé's shot was too high, and then Ferran Torres comes in on the left for Cancelo to just add another body in on those set pieces as well. 82nd minute, here comes the winner. Lewandowski from the corner flag again. Gundogan again with the delivery. Aim for Araujo in the middle, who took Domenech's attention as he misplayed it, that being the goalkeeper. And Lewandowski was wide open and available to score his second of the day and 15th of the season. Then Lewandowski caps off the hat trick, 93rd minute in stoppage time, puts the icing on the set-piece hat trick. This one from a penalty. Lewandowski takes it instead of Gundogan and Rafinha. With him on the bench, obviously he can't take it there, so no conversation with Lewandowski sitting on the brace. That goal made it 16 for him in the Liga, and almost 20%, by the way, of his Liga goals this season were scored in this game. That's how rough his drop in form was throughout the winter months. It is interesting that before this game, Lewandowski also talked about how there is no way that he's going to be leaving Barcelona, and I think him scoring a hat trick right after that conversation means that is going to be another topic to talk about on tomorrow's podcast. And the 3 points from Barcelona, as with a loss, they would have gone down 4 to Girona. Instead, they go away at Girona on the weekend in second place, but only up by 2 points. So if Girona were to get the 3 points against Barcelona, they would then jump them for second place in the table with only a few matches left. So for second place at least, all left to play for on the weekend. So if you don't want to miss that match review or tomorrow's podcast or any of the YouTube shorts I've been doing as well, if you're watching on video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. But of course, if you're just listening to the podcast, I always appreciate that. Leaving a good rating helps me out. As well as the Patreons, as low as $3, you get these shows without the ads. And then of course, follow along on Twitter and Instagram, Close Facebook group, Discord. That's where all the community stuff is. Most importantly though, thanks so much for listening to the show. Until next time, we'll talk to you soon. And Forza Barca.